Hello everyone, Hachadino over here, and this is going to be the full Sublety guide for Season 3. To remember, I will do a lot of timestamps, so if you are an experienced player, you can skip quite ahead. I'm going to be explaining, of course, talents, gears, and everything from single target to Mythic Plus, but there's not a lot to explain new about the spec. Kind of, there is only one optimization that we do, and then other optimizations that we already do but are more important now because of how the tier set and our gear works. So let's begin. First of all, Sublety, as you might already know, it's going to be using the Trickster Hero talent. It's way better than the Stalker at anything right now, and it's going to do more damage. Of course, there are different talent builds, but this one is the one that is the best kind of for single target right now. Can change, but it's very unlikely unless they do a lot of talent changes. And there's also the one for Mythic Plus, changes a little bit. There is one in Sims, and there is one that I recommend. This one does coincide, but the one that I recommend for Mythic Plus, it's a little bit like this. Point here, and then this one. This one, and pam pam. This is what I would recommend for Mythic Plus. Of course, as you know, the imports will always be in the description themselves. And then now let's go into the important things. As you know, we are as burst class. We're going to be bursting every 1.5 minutes, and we also have a lot of cool things to do with the new trinket called Unyielding Nether Prism. Mainly, we are going to be using this trinket, Unyielding Nether Prism, the PvP trinket, or Forge as our own use main agility effects, and then a passive trinket. Passive trinket like Antenna or Cosmic Hunt. Honorable mention to Void Touch Fragment that performs really well in Mythic Plus. That's also what we are going to be likely using. Do know that they did nerf the pacemaker, so we are maybe not going to use that one, but the crystal it's still a very good one to do. Now, as you already know, we have a lot of cool things in the sheet that I'm going to be explaining from optimizations that we already do. But first, let's go into the sims themselves, where you can see the gear. We are going to be using, of course, the new Forset, making it so our unseen blades hit harder and have a chance to hit twice. Enable us to, of course, be using more coup de grâces. And, of course, now we also can use a second one within 5 seconds, and the second one does a little bit more damage. This makes it so we have another optimization to do. That is, while we are in Shadow Blades, we are going to be using a Shuriken Storm in between the cubes sometimes. As you know, we have Shadowcraft that makes it so we can use 2 finishers in a row, and that happens quite a bit on cube. On single target, we are going to be using 2 lenses on our embellishments. The ones that seem the best are, of course, going to be slots where there is not a lot of power, so we can get kind of a put here. Like you can see also here that we use different gems, the critical strike one, and then versatility and mastery mainly, and it's going to be the neck and the wrists. Remember that while you begin the season, it's going to be different what I recommend. I'm going to do a video about that also later, but that is mainly what we are going to be using. Do know that there's also the boots from the Shadow Stalkers that buff a lot our cloak. They are going to be very good to be using at least on normal difficulty or heroic difficulty, and of course eventually mythic difficulty. Our rings are going to be just, you can use a BOE ring or dungeon rings, just rings that don't have haste. Mainly you are going to be gearing towards that. The belt is going to be very likely that we use our chain belt from last season until quite a bit inside of the raid around heroic eye level. We will change it, and it's going to be for a lot of us the mythic BOE with good stats spread. You can of course always sim which status spread is the best for your character, and then use that. Our offset is going to be shoulders. In this case, these shoulders are from Loom Ithar, but you can also use crafted shoulders for a while until you get the ones from this boss in Mythic. Nothing crazy apart from weapons. These two weapons have new enchants that you may not already know. They are still quite close. These are the mastery and versatility enchants. The critical strike enchant is also quite kind of close with, in this case, radiant, the one that gives agility. They are very close, but in this case, in the same mastery and versatility, perform a little bit better. As you can see, of course, he is also using the astral antenna. There's a cool clip if you want to check where you can see a lot of people proccing it. It's going to be very fun in raid, and this is mostly it for single target. So you can see it's using the same talents that we were kind of showing before. And then for Mythic Plus and things, the only thing that would change would be, in this case, that we use 2 down threads instead of lenses. So in this case, instead of using the neck and the wrists as embellishments, it's going to be using the shoulders and the wrists. Critical strike does become more powerful in AoE situations. So if you want to gear for both, you can kind of do this. Use craft shoulders and wrists. Do remember that crafting a weapon the first week with lenses is going to be also very strong. But let's forget about that for now. Let's go into the rotation itself. I'm going to show a fast clip about the opener. Do remember that also in dummies, we don't have a Sky Fury or Bloodlust, and this is an opener with the first dance. There is also one of the changes from last season to now. Now it's never worth to have Weapon Master, mainly not because the first dance is super strong, because it's only one dance in a whole fight, but because Weapon Master is super weak and doesn't interact that well with anything on our kit. As you might expect, having 4 extra seconds of our most powerful cooldown, that is Shadow Dance with Dance Macabre with high stacks, it's going to be getting a lot of power. Now let me show you the clip, and then we will check a little bit more on the simulation, how it does, and also some implementations that are there. We're going to, of course, be using Symbols of Death before the pool itself. Do remember that this enables us to have 2 superchargers before the fight. There is also even another one that is, remember that I did do a video about this, and I'm going to do a short one to remember and remind people, in this case, that if you use Secret Technique, it takes the disorienting strikes and it saves them. So if you are about to wipe or you are just about to go into a boss, you can get the Secret Technique and you will have those 2 extra unseen blades. It's kind of strong for doing the opener, and if you have that, you can do a special opener with Vanish, but that is something for another time in the extra optimization video that I would make. Of course, you would be using the Symbols of Death around 20 seconds before the pull, so you get the cooldown back. And here nothing changes. Shadow Strike, Flagellation, Rupture, and then go into the dance itself. When you begin the dance, we are going to be using 1 backstab, and then after that backstab, you see here that I will be using Shadow Blades, Symbols of Death, and using a Secret Technique, but without Cold Blood. Remember, Cold Blood is going to be used on the second Secret Technique. Always in our cooldowns, we are going to be using Cold Blood on the second secret technique because it's stronger and it's going to hit a lot harder. In this case, because we are using nether prism, we are not going to be using it on pull and going to be using it at 1 minute 30. So you're going to have around 1 or 2 stacks, but you don't want to waste them on pull. Of course, you can use them. Nothing changes. You can even macro it with shadow blades, but I do recommend that you have it in a different K binding because in the fight or maybe in Mythic Plus, you will have situations that maybe you want to move the damage ahead a little bit and do that. Now here has nothing crazy. Do remember that now we have the 2 cups. As you can see here, I did proc Shadowcraft, and when you proc Shadowcraft, you can use 2 finishers in a row, making me able to do a coup de grace and then get my combo points back and do a coup de grace. Do remember that there is an annoying thing with coup de grace, is that it does 3 hits. It does 1 hit instantly, then around 1 in 0.6, and then the last one at 1.2. And in each of those 3 hits, you can get your combo points back from Shadowcraft. So do be aware before you use a builder, as you may get the combo points back on the last hit. And your global cooldown it's already done, so you may do a Shadow Strike instead, but you will be wasting that. You can see that in the PTR there was quite a bit of lag with 300 or something lag. Now we have finished our first dance. It's 12 seconds of dance, very strong, and we are going to go into our second one. So same thing, we are going to backstab, and this will be, in this case, enable a coup de grace. But we are going to be using our secret technique because we have a Shadowcraft proc also. Remember, if you have more than 7, in this case, shadow techniques, you are going to proc that, and then we are going to be using a coup de grace. And after this coup de grace, we are going to be using Storm. Ideally, you would be using a Storm only in Blades, but here I used Storm anyway because we are going to fill our combo points. You can, of course, still use Strike in this case. It's not going to be a DPS loss. And just keep on going. To remember that this does not change. We do build 2 6 combo points or more for our finishers. Don't worry. Even if you finish a dance with cool combo points, you can go into the next one with no issues. Now, here I'm going to finish the clip at 2 dances, but you might see in my cooldowns that my secret technique has only 13 seconds of cooldown. So in this case, what we would do is we would go into the next dance using the same thing. We would be using, in this case, an eviscerate to get our cooldown reduction. This is also going to be kind of an optimization that we do sometimes. And using that eviscerate, we are going to be getting 10 seconds of cooldown reduction. That will give us access to our next secret technique. We are going to be using, in this case, 3 dances in a row. There's also a situation, like I told you before, with the opener itself, where you have more combo points and all the things, because you are going to be using, of course, a pot that gives you some extra power. And if you are Magar, you're going to be using the Ancestral Call. And you may be able to use secret technique on the first dance itself. This secret technique with Cold Blood is the second one. As you can see here, it uses the first one. And here it takes the second one. Of course, this does not change anything, and you still want to use dance as soon as possible. In this case, as you can see here, it does use secret technique at the end of dance. That is fine. You will go into the second dance by itself, and then the hits will happen. And don't worry, they are not going to be losing a lot of damage in that case. You may also see here that it has 1 stack of the nether prism or whatever, and it also got a lot of stacks from antenna, but ignore that. Now let's talk about other optimizations that we may do. that become more important. If you didn't know, we are going to be holding Coupe de Grasses if we are going to go into dances. What does this mean? This means that when we get 2 or escalating blades, you will see this further into the sim itself. You can also do this vanish here to get some common points, but it's not, of course, 100% needed. I do like to save my vanishes for important things or for the second one in the fight where you get some extra power on those. Of course, do remember to refresh rupture always before the dances and things. And here is doing what I told you before. This is the 4th dance in the fight. It's using an eviscerate to get cooldown reduction for secret technique. And then here, remember, we are not in Shadow Blades, so we are going to be using a Shadow Strike in between our coupes because it does more damage, and because even if we proc the Unseen Blades, it's not that important in that case. Now here, it's nothing crazy. Do remember that we do use symbols alone before the next set of cooldowns, and here it's going to be using, of course, symbols, and then an eviscerate and secret technique. You remember that still we always want to buff our secret technique with symbols of death because of supercharger, as here. And here it's building the unseen blades for our set of cooldowns. We will hold Coupe up to almost 20 seconds, and you can see here it does do that. Here he is getting the unseen blades. It was kind of lucky because none of these did a double hit, and he also didn't get any unseen blade procs. But if you do proc at around 1 minute and 10, you do hold it until your cooldowns. And how do you hold it? Well, this may not look pretty, but it is what we do. We are going to be standing at full combo points, and we are going to be backstabbing to not fill our energy bar. So if you are in that case going to around to 80 energy, you are going to stab once and then wait a little bit. As you can see here, it waits 2 seconds. Oh, you go again to 80 energy, you stab another time, and here it's kind of saving the shadow technique procs. Keep saving them. You can see from 112 to around 130 when we are going to be using our flagellation again. It has saved around 6 shadow techniques and goes into the cooldowns. Same thing as in the opener, flagellation, rupture, and symbols of death, backstab, shadow blade secret technique, then coup de grace, and then here we do use shuriken storm because it's between the finishers. And then the coup de grace, shadow strike, eviscerate, eviscerate. Remember, this is a shorter dance because we don't have the first dance at the beginning. It's going to be 8 seconds. And into the second dance, backstab, eviscerate, then cold blood with our secret technique. Same thing here before, we still have shadow blades. So we do a coup de grace, shuriken storm, coup de grace again. And nothing crazy here. It goes into other things. This is another optimization that we already did if we had good RNG on our shadow techniques. We are going to be using secret techniques on cooldown. This means that here we just finished all of our dances and we don't have enough, in this case, symbols of death to be using with our secret technique, but we can use this secret technique alone and get enough cooldown reduction to get our symbols of death and secret technique on the next dance. As you can see here, it does use secret technique at 2 minutes and then gets cooldown reduction back from rupture, coup de grace, and another coup de grace, and then an eviscerate. This eviscerate is going to make it so you have enough cooldown reduction to have those 10 seconds of leeway for getting our eviscerate, and then a secret technique in dance. And here you see that it does finish the dance in a coup de grace. So it does do a backstab and then a coup de grace again. This is kind of what we do all the time, saving techniques, saving our things, using our cooldowns in check. And then do remember that sometimes we do use that secret technique alone or with the symbols of death. This happens also sometimes while you are going to be using that one. And that's all of the single target rotation. Now onto the multi-target rotation. This is kind of the talent set that seems best, but this is because of two things. One of those is because the first dance does not get synced correctly. As you know, across a dungeon, we have a lot of the first dance procs, even now better when they have fixed it. And also the rupture from replicating shadows. It doesn't have always like at least 5 or 6 targets that you do have in Mythic Plus dungeons to spread. So, like I said before, you just change these 2 finality points to those, and do remember that you also have almost all of the information here for things. If you kind of want refresher for the single target things, you want to at least have those 14 seconds before you flagellation and go into dances and things like that. 14 seconds on cold blood also, and same things like this. I will update this a little bit and put more information here on the new things. Now, do remember that we play Tornado if we want. It's not a 100% needed thing, but you do more DPS, but you may not use it as you think. It's not going to be a burst cooldown, it's going to be a cooldown reduction cooldown. What does this mean? This means that we are going to be using cooldown to spread ruptures or to get cooldown reduction to get more dances in pools. What does this mean? Of course, we are going to not change our AoE things. We are going to be still using our premeditations and things like that. And do remember that using Shuriken Storm, it's not going to be happening inside of our dances, but we are going to be looking, of course, at find weakness. If you don't know what it is, it's going to be this time over here when we create with Shuriken Storm or our Shadow Strike that we put the find weakness, or with backstabs we do get that find weakness debuff, and with shadow finishers, Black Powder and Eviscerate, our main finishers, are going to be using this extra damage. Why I'm talking about this right now is because while you have at least 5 targets with Find Weakness, and we have Shadow Blades with there at least 3 targets with Find Weakness, we are going to be using Black Powder. As you can see here, it uses it quite a bit. But one very important thing about the AoE things, we are still going to be using Coup de Grace every time it's up. That does not change. And same thing as before, we are going to be using Shadow Strikes always in dance, except between our Coup de Graces, while we will be using a Storm. You may be thinking also that we are be using T, but you can safely macro this to dance and be very careful to not proc it outside of dance. So remember that it has an auto proc if you go below 30, so try to be very careful about this and not go below 30, or it will proc outside of dances and be kind of useless. Because remember, most of our damage is inside of Shadow Dance. If you proc it outside, you will get, yes, 100 energy, but that is literally only 2 storms. 2 storms that will be doing 10k DPS. Nothing else changed a lot. The only thing that changed, of course, is the things from the expansion. I will be sharing a cool Wikara in a different medium where you can check the find weakness debuffs that are around you. I'm going to also be putting it on the description mainly if you want to check that one out. There's also one where you can see the number of enemies that are around you. That is done by Fu. And also, of course, do remember that these sims that I'm going to be using are always from his sheet, and he has updated it recently. Every time he updates it, I may do a video about it if there are changes to the APL or anything. Now, that is everything about rotation itself. I haven't done a clip about the AoE things because it depends a lot on many things, the number of targets, the cooldowns you have, and also another powerful things like procs and your foresight. Because remember, with Nether Prism, we can move our damage all the way from full to 1 minute and 30 or even to 3 minutes ahead, making it us a very valuable spec to kind of, let's say, bring in our mid-core keys. We are sadly not going to be top dog on DPS, but we are not going to be useless at least. Now, of course, do remember that there are many things that may change, but if they change around almost anything, I'm still going to be making update videos about it. And also, do remember that I will be streaming every time and also be doing other videos. So do check out the channel if you can. Have a nice day, and I will see you on the next video.